A former BC United MLA is launching a new political party. Plus,
we're pretty happy about it. We want more. That's probably not surprising. But for now, we're really grateful.
TransLink reveals a plan to prevent major service cuts, how they plan to do it, and what it will cost you. And
clearly let down and despondent that I was not seen as being part of the voting population.
Why some voters with sight loss say they struggled to cast ballots in Vancouver's by-elections last weekend.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. A former MLA is launching a new political party aimed at attracting centrist voters after the collapse of BC United. As Katie DeRosa shows us, Corinne Kirkpatrick says she wants to offer a balanced option in a polarized political landscape.
As the BC Conservatives rose in last year's provincial election, BC United, formerly the BC Liberal dynasty, fell. Former BC United MLA Corinne Kirkpatrick says she was left politically adrift after leader Kevin Falcon took the party out of the running.
It left countless British Columbians without a political home.
Kirkpatrick has now launched a new political party, Centre BC.
We need both fiscal restraint and a strong safety net to ensure that nobody falls behind.
While the next provincial election is 3.5 years away, Kirkpatrick says she wants to attract federal Liberals energized by Mark Carney's campaign. She admits building a political party from scratch is tough and expensive, but says it was the only option after realizing the BC United board was not willing to force Falcon out.
We're here today because Kevin Falcon still refuses to resign as leader of the BC Liberal Party.
Political strategist Kareem Alam worked on Falcon's leadership campaign in 2022, but publicly supported the NDP last fall. Falcon has not done any interviews since he threw in the towel, but he said to CBC News in a text message, quote, "The board asked me to stay on only to allow them to avoid the costs and logistics involved in organizing a leadership convention, while they focus instead on repaying outstanding obligations." The new party has the backing from a few former MLAs, including Tom Shapitka from BC United and former NDP MLA Adam Walker. One former BC United colleague wasn't as enthusiastic.
But the reality is the BC Conservatives are the right of centre option.
The Premier wishes Kirkpatrick luck.
I guess we'll see where everything lands.
As for the name, Kirkpatrick says she's learned lessons from the BC Liberals' disastrous rebranding exercise.
So I think Centre BC is pretty clear.
Kirkpatrick must now try to attract supporters, donors, and candidates to her middle-of-the-road message. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
Premier David Eby, meanwhile, says he's directing his government to go further to reduce reliance on the United States.
I'm sending directions to Crown corporations, to the heads of government, to do a few things. One is to look at your contracts. Can you cancel contracts with American companies and replace them with Canadian companies? Make sure that you're canceling travel that's not essential.
Eby says the move is important in light of Trump's changing tariff orders. TransLink says it has found a solution to its financial crisis, at least for a few years. The Transit Authority and the province have announced new funding plans after warning it might have to cut services drastically. More now from Justin McElroy.
For a number of years now, ever since ridership went down during the pandemic and then did not fully recover in the years after compared to where TransLink was at in 2019, along with declining revenue from the gas tax, people were wondering, how do they make up this shortfall? And certainly mayors had been asking for a long time for more money. They had gotten some of the money from the province and federal government, but now here's their agreement. A 0.5% increase to everyone's property tax. That'll be an average of $20 more for the average household. A 5-cent increase to transit fares coming next year. A $1.50 increase if you're taking the Canada Line from YVR. That's already more than a regular SkyTrain. It's going to be a $1.50 more now. Increasing off-paid parking taxes, and the thing from the province that helped it come together and announce today, another $104 million every year from the BC government. So all told, TransLink now thinks that they're going to be able to continue to give service, that they won't have to cut any routes as they had been threatening, but in fact will be able able to create 50 more routes and expand, or 40 more routes, expand service for 50 others. So this puts them, at least for the next 3 years, in a place where they feel confident. Those who have been transit advocates for a long time think that there could be more done in the future.
I think we can get a plan in 2026 that provides a permanent funding solution and that does so in a way that makes transit good in this region, that adds enough buses and trains that we don't have to worry about overcrowding anymore, that we can finally have that SkyTrain to UBC.
Yeah, so this funding model doesn't get a SkyTrain to UBC, doesn't get a gondola to SFU, so it's not the full meal deal that maybe some people had been hoping for, but it staves things off for a few years, and at least today, mayors are breathing a sigh of relief.
Justin McElroy reporting. To the federal election now, a three-way race may be shaping up in the riding of Abbotsford South Langley. Former BC Cabinet Minister Mike de Jong is running as an independent. As Mira Baines reports, what could have been a safe Conservative win is now up in the air.
Abbotsford South Langley, rooted in agriculture, is attracting more families and economic growth. But the border community is also facing challenges as the U.S. threatens tariffs on Canadian imports. It's becoming a tight local race, but some voters we spoke to say they're focusing on the big picture.
What's going on in the U.S. and healthcare. I'm a nurse, so the healthcare is a big one. Well, I'm more so focusing watching the Liberals and the Conservatives.
We don't need MAGA something. No American ideals. We need our own identity. And I want to go forward to incorporate Canada with investment and make it work.
He's going to face all the issues, so I think I will go for a leader instead of individual people.
The riding has been considered a safe Conservative seat until recently.
Look, this is one of the strongest Conservative ridings in the country historically. I think people are feeling as if they've been taken for granted.
Former BC Cabinet Minister Mike de Jong ran for the Conservative nomination, but was told he wasn't qualified to run. He's running as an independent.
Local people should select their candidates and not have them imposed on them by some party hack in Ottawa.
We went to the federal Conservative candidate's campaign office. The 25-year-old who works for his family's blueberry farm wasn't available. Campaign workers at Sukhman Gill's office told us he would not be able to meet with us. They told us he was busy door knocking. The fight on the right has given the federal Liberal campaign new life.
I think people have a hearty respect for the Liberal leader, Mark Carney.
Kevin Gillies is a former community newspaper journalist, works with homeless people in the community, and is a realtor.
It seems to me that a big part of this election is voting for the leader, and Mike doesn't have one.
Abbotsford South Langley could be a bellwether riding.
They're really thinking about who is best positioned to stand up for the country's interests and defend the country against these intrusive policies.
The riding's fate is to be decided on April 28th. Mira Baines, CBC News, Abbotsford.
Housing is top of mind for many voters in this federal election. Party leaders are promising to build, and a lot of building is planning to take place in Burnaby. Our Jessica Chung spoke with voters in that city who say affording a home continues to be a stretch.
The federal election campaign is in full swing, and here in Burnaby, housing is a top issue. And Burnaby is very interesting because it's one of BC's fastest growing cities. It's also seen rapid growth in the construction of high-rise apartments and these mini cities surrounding SkyTrain stations. Think Lougheed, Brentwood, and of course here in Metrotown.
It's expensive.
It is really tough out there.
It's 2,000 plus for one bedroom. It's more than 30% of my income, so.
Affordability, top of mind for voters in Burnaby.
I'm looking to move to Burnaby, but it's super expensive. So it's like I gotta commute to work because I cannot pay the rent in Burnaby.
And you can see a lot of people sharing houses, and actually the prices of rooms are getting really expensive.
Data from the BC Rent Bank, which provides interest-free loans to help renters, says last year clients reported spending 73% of their income on rent. The agency also says more people are relying on the service.
We've seen a 27% increase in the demand for services in the Rent Bank program.
And we're seeing an increase in the amount of funds that renters need to stay housed and the frequency at which they're coming back to the rent bank.
Federal party leaders are making housing a priority. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, who's running for a seat in the riding of Burnaby Central, says he'll build 3 million homes by 2030. Liberal leader Mark Carney says he'll double the pace of construction. And Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he'll axe the sales tax on new homes. The mayor of Burnaby says he's looking for a federal government that will collaborate with municipalities.
Something needs to happen quicker. We need to lose a lot of the red tape. The next Prime Minister, I'm hoping, will be very collaborative and very open to sitting down and having real conversations rather than a top-down approach.
Voters in Burnaby will be able to make their voices heard on Election Day, which is coming up on April 28th. Jessica Chung, CBC News, Burnaby.
To another vote now. Some Vancouver voters are disappointed at the lack of accessible resources during last weekend's council by-elections. As Pinky Wong shows us, one voter says his neighbor had to step in.
Forward. Girl.
Bruce Gilmore and his guide Doc Felina were at the Dunbar polling station for the Vancouver by-election last weekend. He described the process to cast his vote as challenging from start to finish. There were long lineups, and he said a lack of accessible voting resources.
Clearly let down and despondent that I was not seen as being part of the voting population.
Luckily, neighbors stepped in.
I got intercepted by a resident who said, "Hey Bruce, can I give you a hand?"
He says there was a lack of staff outside the community center to assist people with accessibility needs. Inside the polling station, Gilmore says he could only cast his ballot with his wife's help, who arrived later. There were no braille templates or staff that could assist him. Gilmore records there were accessible voting resources at previous federal elections.
Pass, fail, this failed. I have managed to be more independent, more appropriately assisted, and access appropriate assistance in a timely way when voting before.
In a response to CBC News, the City of Vancouver says braille templates have not been part of the city's election materials to date. The election office says a priority access line was available for voters and assisted ballot marking were offered. The office says it is deeply regrettable that there were accessibility challenges caused by capacity issues on Saturday and is committed to improvements in time for the 2026 general election.
That's okay, keep moving.
This advocate from the Canadian National Institute for the Blind was not surprised to hear about Gilmore's experience.
There's definitely challenges as a lot of information and the ballot is visual, so that creates some barriers.
He says there are some 20,000 British Columbians who identified themselves with the degree of sight loss, and tools should be available at polling stations.
Definitely have like the braille and the large print is actually doesn't require a lot of resources to print. They just need to be ready and having somebody there available to help.
Leong says each election, be it federal, provincial or municipal, is different when it comes to accessible voting, and that consistency is key. Pinky Wong, CBC News, Vancouver.
That's good. Paris Madavi's here for our first check of the weather. We got rain, we got a bit of sun here, and other parts, I guess.
Yes, we missed the worst of the rain here in Metro Vancouver. It looked like we could see something more consistent, but really just a few showers here. The North Island got quite a bit more rain, as well as the Central Coast, and we are seeing some more rain and showers move through the Central Interior and up towards the Peace region. That'll likely continue for a little while yet. Down here in the Southern Interior, we have also seen a few waves of some showers and high elevation flurries move through. Meanwhile, on the South Coast, like I said, the worst of that rain was over earlier this morning, but we did see a fair amount of it coming probably in the mid to late afternoon-ish. That's when we saw the strongest stuff there that we were just looking at on the radar, and even a lightning strike up around Powell River. If we take a look at our forecast over the next couple days across the South Coast, you'll notice a lot of clearing up, but still a possibility of some showers in many areas as we head into tomorrow. You can see some unsettled conditions on parts of the Lower Mainland as well as here. As that low pressure system sweeps up the coast that brought that heavy rain, we're just leaving some unsettled conditions in its wake. So hard to say exactly when and where those showers will pop up, but be aware, despite the mostly sunny skies over the next couple days, you might see, the odd drizzle.
Okay, we are warned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vancouver police say a senior has died after being found injured in a downtown East Side alley. That story's next. Vancouver police are looking into the death of a senior who was found injured in an alley in the downtown east side last month. He was in his early 90s. As the CBC's Pinky Wong reports, police say the victim was attacked before he died.
It's behind this community center near Main and East Hastings, where a 92-year-old man was found in medical distress a few weeks ago. Now police say the victim was assaulted by multiple people before his death.
At the time when he was found on March 18th by a worker that works in that area, she found him and called paramedics.
The man was taken to the hospital for medical treatment. He died 13 days later. VPD is not releasing the identity of the victim but says he was a Chinatown resident. Police say 3 suspects have been identified, but no one has been arrested.
Not only will we have task force barrage officers in that Chinatown neighborhood, we're going to redeploy extra officers to really ensure safety in that community.
Investigators are now working to determine if the assaults led to the senior's death. The president of this nonprofit says the incident is not that surprising.
And what we've seen, the increase in random attacks on our seniors has grown like exponentially.
She says her organization offers safety seminars for seniors in the downtown east side.
So many seniors don't feel safe going outside into the neighborhood. Many of the seniors who live here have lived here 20 or 30 years. This is their home, and they do deserve to feel safe.
So I got stabbed in the head 2 weeks ago.
The senior says the neighborhood can be scary at times.
But when you have a bottleneck in anything you do, including traffic, including people, including addictions, including everything in the world, when you all try to confine it to a one area, then the friction starts and the trouble starts.
Police are asking anyone with information to contact them. Pinky Wong, CBC News, Vancouver.
The federal RCMP says it has raided and dismantled at least 2 suspected fentanyl production labs here in BC.
This interdiction has prevented several million potentially lethal doses of fentanyl from being produced and distributed across Canada.
Mounties say they worked with local detachments and federal teams to execute numerous search warrants in Pitt Meadows, Mission, Langley, as well as Richmond. Police say they found 3 illicit drug production labs, 2 of them meant for making fentanyl. 2 people have been arrested. The city of Richmond has named 2 streets in honor of RCMP Constable Jimmy Ng. He was killed in the line of duty more than 20 years ago.
We are deeply grateful for our Richmond RCMP officers who take their places daily on the front lines to make our community safer, and we remind everyone of their steadfast dedication.
The ceremony unveiled the new streets in the Richmond Centre Development Project. They will be called Constable Jimmy Ng Road and Constable Jimmy Ng Place. Back in September of 2022, Constable Ng was on a routine patrol in the city when his police car was T-boned by a suspected street racer. 2002, I should say. He was 32 years old when he was killed. It was an overcast kind of day in White Rock, but the train still whizzed by. The tide out meant for a chance for some fun on the sand. There is some rain in the forecast for much of our province, but there is a bit of change on the way, just in time for the weekend. Our science and climate specialist Darius Madavi will have your BC-wide weather forecast after this.
I think it's important to give a human face to the stories that we hear every day, the people that they affect. And I think talking to those people is what really gives us the true sense of the impact of the stories that we're hearing.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox.
Celebrate cinema and social impact with CBC at the Sundar Prize Film Festival, April 10th to the 13th. The festival features a diverse slate of films, panels, and special events that shine a light on stories of empowerment and transformation. And on April 12th, join CBC at the Vancouver Vaisakhi Festival, a Sikh celebration of the coming of a new year. Drop by the CBC tent and win some fun CBC prizes.
Back to the federal election campaign now, starting with new Democratic Party leader Jagmeet Singh in Saskatoon. He claims Liberal leader Mark Carney would make deep cuts to services in order to balance the budget.
He said it means health care, it means pensions, it means supports for people living with disabilities, it means GST and HST credits. He has defined the operating costs, and he's told us that he's going to cut them.
Singh claims the reductions would amount to $43 billion, resulting in fewer nurses and other impacts to health care. He also slammed Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre for what he calls cutbacks in his plan. Singh says an NDP government would never support a budget that cuts essential services like health care, urging Canadians to vote New Democrat. He later met with the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations.
We will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of assault-style firearms and leave the classification of new firearm models to the RCMP, to the experts, not to the gun industry.
Liberal leader Mark Carney rolled out his plan to fight crime and make Canadians feel safer at a campaign stop in the Toronto area. Carney pledges to compensate gun owners who were forced to give up assault-style weapons banned by Ottawa. He's also promised to revoke gun licenses for people who've been convicted of violent offenses, including intimate partner violence. The Liberal leader says he would recruit 1,000 more Mounties to fight organized crime and drug and human trafficking.
Over 3 terms, the Liberal government has allowed taxes and development charges to spiral out of control, making the cost of housing even more expensive.
And trying to tackle the affordable housing crisis, Pierre Poilievre says he wants to offer financial incentives for cities and towns to lower fees on housing starts. He says that taken together, his measures could cut the cost of some homes by $100,000. Poilievre's tax cut proposal would apply to purchases under $1.3 million.
It's a plan for foreign policy that will free us from foreign dictates, that will free us from past dependencies, and will ensure that Canadians can be once again proud to truly stand up for justice, peace, and sovereignty throughout the world.
Green Party co-leader Jonathan Pedneau is seeking a global democratic alliance of nations to stand up against threats from authoritarian states. He's also pledging to cancel defense contracts worth billions of dollars with 2 American aerospace giants. Fellow Green co-leaders Elizabeth May spent the day campaigning in New Brunswick. Now, the federal election has so far been dominated by the trade war and the economy. But young voters are telling CBC News the main parties are not addressing one other top issue, the climate crisis. They're concerned the environment isn't getting much play on the campaign trail. Kwabena Ojiro reports.
Young people and first-time voters are trying to figure out which party aligns with their values. But there's one issue they say isn't getting the attention it deserves.
The environment.
Climate change, the environment and our impact on it.
Given all the rumblings south of the border, the economy has dominated leaders' stump speeches and policy proposals. But they run the risk of leaving young voters behind if the climate crisis doesn't seem to be a priority.
Housing and climate. Those are 2 chronic problems that will disproportionately, that already and will continue to disproportionately affect younger people. What those 2 kind of chronic crises have the capacity to do is to dramatically undermine younger people's faith in the social contract going forward.
In 2019, a youth-driven campaign to force leaders into addressing climate change captured the attention and imagination of an entire generation. And then the pandemic, inflation, political unrest, there's been a lot going on. Seeing, or rather not seeing, the role that climate has played in this campaign has some worried that we are at risk of going backwards.
Having some more decent climate policy and having some more ambitious policies towards green initiatives will be better for the Canadian economy, for the average Canadian, and for fighting inflation. We need to remind them how important environmental crisis is, because there's no economy on a dying planet.
In Quebec, we are seeing the real consequences of climate change in the form of flash floods, ice storms, and wildfires. Some younger and first-time voters say they are worried about their future.
A party's environmental framework demonstrates how much they care about my future, our future.
While identity and the economy are important for the current political moment, people told me they feel ignored.
I'm aware that other problems are urgent at the moment and they've been focused on that, and I understand. but how am I going to vote for someone that doesn't have concrete plans of something that's important to me?
I'm someone who's voted for the NDP in the past. I haven't heard much regarding the climate crisis coming out of the NDP at this point in time, so I'm considering other options for sure. Because of how important this is.
So with time ticking away at the campaign clock, the parties have some catching up to do to convince many young voters to turn up and turn out on some of the issues that matter to them the most.
Gobina Oduro in Montreal. The U.S.-China trade war is in full swing, with neither side showing signs of backing down. Andrew Chang explains how China is positioned to absorb the shock of U.S. tariffs and what this global economic disruption could mean for their place in the world order. A note for you, since this story was first aired, the White House has announced the U.S. tariff rate on goods from China would total 145%, up from 125%.
When you're reading Chinese diplomatic language, words really matter because the meaning is almost always deeper than what's on the surface. In March, the second time, Trump imposed a 10% tariff on Chinese goods. China, in a statement, signaled strong dissatisfaction, so they weren't happy. But then, those tariffs ramped up by 34%. And the language changed. China now firmly opposed U.S. tariffs. Now, this might seem like a small thing, but it's not. It conveys a much more serious level of disapproval that goes beyond something China's willing to tolerate and more towards something it sees as unacceptable. And yet, still a note of conciliation at the end, a plea to properly resolve differences with trading partners through fair negotiation. But now, it's all different.
Hundreds of billions of dollars a year they'd make on us on trade. I have great respect for China, but they can't do this.
When Trump threatened an additional 50% tariff on Chinese goods as punishment for China retaliating against previous U.S. tariffs, this time China didn't only respond with firm opposition, as it had before. It went a step further, calling the U.S. escalation a mistake on top of a mistake. And these characters here are zhe. That's how you say extortion in Chinese.
中方必将奉陪到底。
What I'm trying to underline here is that this is remarkably blunt language.
They are much more comfortable these days in using language to signal political discontent and political anger.
The posture is defiant, certainly more hostile and resolute than China has been so far. And it hints at what the country is willing to do to stand up to Trump and where it sees its place in the new world order. China has retaliated against new U.S. tariffs in many ways now. There have been successive tariffs on U.S. energy and agriculture, a broad-based tariff on all American goods, now going up to 84%. Restrictions on critical mineral exports, investigations into and constraints on American companies. But China has other levers too. Consider how it can apply political pressure in arenas that seem to matter very much to Donald Trump.
As of today, TikTok is back. I think we would have a joint venture with the people from TikTok. So I have a warm spot in my heart for TikTok.
This administration feels very strongly that TikTok, hugely popular in the US, but owned and controlled by a Chinese company, that its American operations should be American-owned.
The president seems optimistic, saying he's working with multiple bidders.
Do you think there's going to be a deal on TikTok soon?
There could be. We're dealing with 4 different groups, and a lot of people want it.
But according to a New York Times report this week, even though a deal looked close, under the plan, new investors would own 50% of a new American TikTok entity, while Chinese owners would retain less than 20%. And Beijing seemed to be comfortable with the idea. That all changed very suddenly. And the New York Times reported the deal had hit a wall.
Reporters that we had a deal pretty much with TikTok. Not a deal, but pretty close. And then China changed the deal because of tariffs.
Beijing uses a multi-pronged economic coercion playbook, and they're deploying the entire kit against the United States.
But that's just one political example. Consider how much economic heft China seems prepared and willing to use. You remember all that talk a while ago about Trump wanting to establish a sovereign wealth fund?
It's a very exciting event. We're going to have a sovereign wealth fund, which we've never had. I think in a short period of time, we'd have one of the biggest funds.
The idea was to basically create a giant government piggy bank, except they wouldn't just stuff it full of coins and cash and tax revenue. They'd also plug it right into the stock market. They'd invest that money. So far as I can tell, that never really got off the ground, because I don't know how a country perennially in debt gets the money to suddenly invest on world markets. But you know which country has the biggest overall trade surplus, fueling one of the largest sovereign wealth funds in the world? That's right, China.
They basically have the potential for unlimited intervention in the market.
Yes, the same sovereign wealth fund that early invested in Alibaba, helping turn it into a $200 billion competitor with Amazon. It is also using its considerable resources to prop up Chinese stock markets.
They have intervened in the stock market in the past to keep prices from falling, and they can certainly do so again.
It's buying Chinese shares, big time, with the very explicit goal of stabilizing Chinese businesses facing American tariffs that have gone up 100% in just a couple of months. And China's central bank, they're pumping money into this too, providing loans to secure those additional investments. And the impact of that? Chinese markets, which took a huge tumble on Monday, they've stabilized and are slowly rebounding. So you take all of this together and a picture emerges of China digging in. But digging in for what exactly? China appears to be of the belief that the US, with Trump in the White House, is very much in the process of undermining its own global standing.
China benefits from how the global economic order works right now. If many economies are in trouble, then that's not going to be good for China. But politically, rhetorically, Beijing likely sees an opening.
China is using this crisis to portray itself as a global force in terms of trade, but also a much more reliable partner than the United States.
This is our globe. An imperfect world. There is violence, hegemonism, greed.
That is either PR or propaganda, depending on how you see such things, from China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, posted the very same day as Trump's sweeping Liberation Day tariffs. And it states quite clearly the moral choice China wants to convince the rest of the world that it faces.
Suppression, provocation, tariffs. Do you want to live in a world like this? Or a world like this? No war. Security for all. Equality among nations.
China has been working for years to undercut the liberal international order and to argue, particularly among developing countries, that China is a better partner than the United States and other democracies because China doesn't make demands. It doesn't demand that you get your human rights regime in order, that you improve government governance, that you deal with your environmental challenges. China will just show up with cash.
And there is a pragmatism to China's approach. Since Trump's first term, Chinese companies have found ways to shift production, to skirt Trump's tariffs. Just to give you one example, more than half of Cambodia's factories are now Chinese-owned. And the US now runs a huge trade deficit with Cambodia. And China is now the largest trading partner for more than 120 countries worldwide, running massive surpluses with the US, the UK, the EU, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, India, Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore.
China has more options than the United States. If their exports shrink a little bit, they can partially offset that by increasing domestic demand through more government expenditures, tax cuts, other kinds of policies that are readily available. The United States, on the other hand, does not have so many options because a lot of the things we buy from China, we can't get anywhere else.
To put it all very simply, China is aware of its influence.
China's answer is, we should work for an equal and orderly multipolar world.
When China addressed the world in Munich back in February, that same venue where, by the way, US Vice President J.D. Vance excoriated world leaders.
In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat. If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you.
But as the US was seen to be burning bridges, China was trying to build them, projecting itself as an alternative to the US, as a kind of champion of the globalized economy that Trump and his administration seemed keen to dismantle.
Here I want to make 4 points. First, it is important to advocate equal treatment. Second, it is important to respect international rule of law. Third, it is important to practice multilateralism. Fourth, it is important to pursue openness and mutual benefit.
China has been trying to position itself as a reasonable, benevolent, potential world leader, providing an alternative to liberal democratic ideals and dominance, and that a Chinese-led world order will be an equal accepting place for all types of governments.
China's challenge, of course, is to overcome its own image. To many, it is no hero standing up to a bully. It is itself a coercive force, an authoritarian regime that uses its military and manufacturing might to get its way. China has crushed dissent in Hong Kong. It actively threatens the sovereignty of Taiwan. It has militarized disputed waters, and it stands accused of human rights violations, foreign interference, international property theft. So is this the alternative to Donald Trump the world seeks? And it's worth remembering, China had its own problems to deal with long before Trump came around for round two. A declining birth rate, a sluggish economy. But here's another thing experts told us. China has a tolerance for pain. Its leaders are not judged by surveys or polls or a population that can simply vote it out of power. And if this trade war between China and the US continues to spiral out of control, there will be pain on all sides.
Still ahead, another high-profile aviation disaster in the U.S. A helicopter crashes into the Hudson River off Manhattan. Details next. 6 people, including 3 children, are dead after a helicopter crashed into New York's Hudson River. Witnesses describe seeing the chopper fall apart in midair before plummeting into the water. Officials say on board was a family of Spanish tourists. It's not yet clear what caused the disaster. Darius Madavi is here with our BC-wide weather forecast. I can already see just a hint of blue sky out there.
I know.
What a day.
I mean, just take a look here, Dan.
Oh!
I just probably gave
look at you.
Thank you to the control room for at the very, literally the last second putting this in, because I was like, look at the cool clouds. Yeah, I mean, nothing too special about them. It's a nice view. I know. Every view is special in Vancouver. Isn't that nice? Okay, we can take a look at the weather now. Thank you, control room. We had this low pressure system sweeping up the coast today. In its place, we're seeing high pressure build in. That means drier conditions, sunnier skies over the next few days and into the weekend. Temperatures not budging too much, though, over the next few days. And I will note some unsettled conditions do linger over the next few days in the wake of that low pressure system, which you can see here. I mean, we've seen the major rain come and go, but there's still a few showers popping up in places, but still lots of sunshine on the way. I will note that for the south coast, tomorrow, later in the day, definitely looks cloudier than earlier times. And here we go. You can see some flurries coming down as we get into overnight Friday into Saturday in parts of the interior. Freezing levels also dropping significantly as we get into Friday night, especially in the interior. Then clearing up pretty quickly, and it's not until Saturday, overnight into Sunday, that we see that next system start to roll in off the coast. For the most part, missing the South Island and the Lower Mainland, really just staying up in the North Island, Central Coast, North Coast area. But you may see some periods of rain if you are on the North Island as we get into the end of the weekend. Besides that, though, maybe some showers on the West Coast down to around Tofino, but not as likely. Here are the temperatures over the next few days. Like I said, not changing too much. We're hovering around seasonal for most of the province. Nothing really dramatic changing over the next few days, but temperatures will start to jump up a little bit as we get into early next week. Here are our conditions across the province. Lots of sunshine in many places, but again, note some unsettled conditions in many spots. And again, clouding a little bit more as we get into tomorrow night. Sunshine is going to probably be more in the morning than in the afternoon, evening time. And here's our 5-day forecast. And we've got some mixed skies with the odd shower possible. Continues into very early Saturday morning. And then the sun is here and here to stay for a little while.
That sounds good. Thank you, Darius.
Thank you.
As the Trump administration slashes health programs and jobs, the Canadian Medical Association sees a silver lining. It wants provinces to quickly reach out to disillusioned doctors and scientists. Georgie Smythe shows us the appeal and the challenges of bringing healthcare staff north.
Crowds of laid-off healthcare workers line up outside federal buildings as promised cuts to jobs and spending take effect.
As part of President Trump's DOGE workforce reduction initiative, we're going to streamline HHS.
But those losses could be Canada's gain, with agencies here seeing a surge of inquiries from doctors thinking of relocating north.
There's no question that U.S. physicians are interested in coming to Canada.
But Canadian authorities need to turn that interest into offers, she says.
And so if you can demonstrate that you're a province where there's less paperwork, where people can seek out research if they're interested, where they will be supported to do the work that they really feel passionate about, that weighs a lot when someone's thinking about where they want to work.
Currently, only BC, Ontario, New Brunswick and Nova Scotia have fast-track pathways for US physicians to migrate and work in Canada without needing additional exams or supervision.
So I just Googled jobs in Toronto, which is where I'm from, and they had job offers and said that Americans were invited. And I was, whoa.
Dr. Karen Ginsberg is transferring her American qualifications to work in Ontario starting next year.
The sentiment as a physician here in the United States right now is really, it's been quite depressing. It's not the medicine itself. It's the way our country is going right now and the way medicine has gone, and it's a mess. It's a big mess.
But recruiters warn it'll take some time to settle people.
By the time they get licensed, interview process, I mean, you're talking at least a month to maybe 2 months, and then they have to give notice where they are. So we usually say, you're looking at 3 to 6 months.
For years, Canada has turned to other countries to recruit healthcare workers. Now expect provinces to get louder and more targeted to speak directly to Americans. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Coming up, the Vancouver Whitecaps have advanced to the semifinals of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. They're going to face Lionel Messi at BC Place. But will he make the trip? Stick around. The Vancouver Whitecaps have advanced to the semifinals of the CONCACAF Champion Cup. Their next opponent is Inter Miami, the home of soccer legend Lionel Messi.
As John Hernandez reports, fans are crossing their fingers the superstar actually makes the trip to Vancouver after a disappointing no-show last season.
Ocampo kept in play and smashed in!
A tying goal that was as good as a game winner.
With one of the biggest goals in club history!
A 2-2 tie against Mexico City Pumas was enough to advance the Vancouver Whitecaps in the CONCACAF tournament.
When Tristan scored that goal, oh my God, I thought we were going to get the cops called on us. The only thing I can compare this to is the day my 3 daughters were born.
Tony Gabriel, among diehard fans, exhilarated by the team's success.
Getting to the semifinals, beating the 2 Mexican teams, it just shows where we are. I call it a team of destiny.
That destiny is a ticket to the Champions Cup semifinals against Inter Miami. The first game scheduled in just 2 weeks in Vancouver, begging the question, Will he come?
I'm 99% sure he's going to come.
I'm not going to say it's going to happen until you actually see him on the pitch.
Miami's star player is global icon and Argentinian soccer legend Lionel Messi. He was supposed to play here last year, but bowed out just 2 days before kickoff, disappointing tens of thousands of ticket holders.
I wasn't upset with the Whitecaps. It wasn't their fault, but it was a letdown.
There was a lot of frustration. Now there's going to be an opportunity. It's a continental semifinal. You have to imagine those players will be making the trip this time.
On Thursday, massive online queues for tickets just moments after they went on sale. But this Vancouver ticket vendor thinks some buyers might play the waiting game.
Once bitten, twice burned. The sentiment to me is we're not going to go until we actually know he's actually landed. He's in Vancouver. There's sightings.
I love my ticket guy, Fatih.
Others have already made the leap of faith.
He's going to come. He will play. We will win in Vancouver. Even though he plays for the other team, it's still going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. And I can't wait to give him the gears and razz him a little bit.
The two teams square off on April 24th. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
I wish that father of three was more excited about the game.
I know. I wish I was that excited about anything.
It's awesome. Great tattoo. He's got the good kit. It's going to be fun. That will be much coveted for sure. A lot of soccer fans.
I grew up. My dad is a huge Lionel Messi fan. He would love to come out and see him.
All right.
So,
you're going to get a knock on the door soon. Hey, got a ticket?
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, YouTube, and our website.
And we'll have your next local news at 11 o'clock right after the National. Good night.